Windsor Great Park, Berkshire, 1803, dawn mist. A Georgian mansion, red brick, symmetrical, 9 bays wide, sits in cleared parkland. Smoke rises from 6 chimneys. The windows, sash, gouged brick arches, reflect nothing, just black glass, watching. Inside, marble fireplaces, barrel-vaulted ceilings, 6-paneled doors, original stonework, everything perfect, everything expensive. Outside, manicured lawns descending to a ha-ha wall, designed so you see unbroken landscape, pastoral illusion, while livestock are kept away. Beyond, Virginia water, the artificial lake glittering through ancient oaks. They call it Holly Grove. The owner is Spencer Mackay. His money comes from 3 estates: Lusignan, Cane Grove, Annadale, sugar plantations, British Guiana, South America. The estates produce sugar. The sugar produces profit. The profit built this house. But sugar doesn't harvest itself. Enslaved people do that. Hundreds of them, working, dying, replaced. Their labor, extracted, monetized, shipped across the Atlantic, paid for every brick in this elegant English mansion. Spencer Mackay's fortune was built on human bondage, and his mansion, now called Forest Lodge, now home to the Prince and Princess of Wales, still stands on that foundation. But here's the question that haunts Windsor Great Park. When you buy a house built by slavery, do the bricks remember? And when royalty moves in, does the past become their responsibility, or does silence make it disappear? If you're ready for an investigation into a royal residence with a past the Crown doesn't advertise, where Georgian elegance meets uncomfortable truth, subscribe now. Let's begin. Forest Lodge, Windsor Great Park, Berkshire, England. The house sits on Crown land, not far from Windsor Castle, maybe 3 miles, surrounded by ancient forest. Virginia water nearby, secluded, private, perfect for royalty seeking refuge from public scrutiny. The numbers tell the present. Built 1770s with earlier cottage from 1697. Architectural style, Georgian, red brick, Flemish bond, symmetrical. 9 bay windows across the facade, 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, 6 chimneys, originally more. Grade 2 listed since March 1972. Renovated 2001, £1.5 million restoration. Lease 20 years as of 2025. Current residents, Prince William, Princess Kate, and their 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. Monthly rent, undisclosed, described as open market rate. From outside, Forest Lodge is quintessential Georgian architecture. Red brick and Flemish bond, alternating headers and stretchers, creating pattern. Slate and tile roof, 9 bay symmetrical frontage, 3 bay central block projecting slightly, flanked by 2-story wings. The entrance, stuccoed pilasters, decorative columns, supporting a dentil cornice, tooth-like blocks. Venetian windows, 3-part window, center arched, flanked by narrower rectangular sections. The central doorway, 6-paneled, painted, discreet. The windows, sash, gauged brick arches, stucco band courses run horizontally at first floor level, decorative but also visually separating floors. But look closer. The roofs of the side wings are different heights. This disrupts perfect Georgian symmetry. Intentional or addition? The house was sensitively enlarged in the 19th and early 20th centuries, so original core, later modifications. The grounds. Ha-ha wall, sunken boundary, keeps animals out without obstructing view. Tennis court, large pond, lawns and gardens, manicured, extensive. Proximity to Virginia water, the artificial lake created in the 1740s. Inside, based on heritage list and planning documents, central hall with barrel-vaulted ceiling, long gallery, room for displaying art, entertaining, principal drawing room, formal reception, original stonework, 18th century, preserved, plaster cornices and ceiling decoration, Georgian, intact, marble fireplaces, multiple, period appropriate, 6-paneled doors throughout, Georgian standard, Venetian windows on interior rooms, repeating the exterior motif, self-contained staff flat, separate accommodation for employees, single-story service wing, added 19th century, kitchens, utilities, servants' workspace. The 2001 restoration, £1.5 million, conserved period features, updated plumbing, electrical, heating, made habitable for 21st century while retaining 18th century character. 2025 renovations, approved planning application, new doors and windows, some replacements necessary, removal of some internal walls, modernizing layout, ceiling repairs, heritage sensitive, new floors where originals damaged beyond repair. Who paid for 2025 work? William and Kate personally, reported extensively, not taxpayer funded, private money, renovation costs covered, rent paid at market rate, 20 years lease. This matters politically, public sensitivity about royal finances. The Sussexes' Frogmore Cottage renovations, taxpayer funded, later repaid, caused controversy. William and Kate's approach, avoid that, pay themselves, rent, don't buy, emphasize it's Crown estate property, managed commercially, not royal gift. So the narrative is normal tenants, rich, yes, royal, yes, but paying like anyone else. But here's what that narrative obscures. The house wasn't always innocent. Forest Lodge, originally Hollygrove, has a past, multiple pasts, layers of history, some Georgian elegance, some royal service, and some blood money. Because in 1803, the house was bought by a man named Spencer Mackay, and Spencer Mackay's fortune came from slavery. Not metaphorically, not indirectly, directly. He owned plantations. Enslaved people worked those plantations. Their labor generated profit. That profit bought Hollygrove. And that history, acknowledged by historians, documented in databases, listed in archives, is mostly absent from contemporary coverage of Forest Lodge. When media reports William and Kate moving to Forest Lodge, they describe Georgian architecture, Windsor location, 8 bedrooms, family-friendly. What they don't mention, the house was built and bought with slavery money. Why not? Multiple reasons. 1, it's uncomfortable. Royalty moving into a house with slavery connection raises questions about responsibility, acknowledgement, reckoning with the past. 2, it's old. The slavery connection is 220 years ago. Does it still matter? Historians say yes. Critics say context matters, but legacy persists. 3, it's complex. The house changed hands multiple times. Crown purchased it in 1829. Since then, royal or government property, so original sin, slavery money, or current ownership, Crown, more relevant. 4, it's not unique. Many Georgian properties in Britain have slavery connections. Country houses, London townhouses, estates, built or purchased with colonial wealth. Forest Lodge isn't exception, it's typical. But typical doesn't mean unimportant. And as William and Kate settle their children into 8 bedrooms with marble fireplaces and barrel-vaulted ceilings, the house holds its history, silently, waiting for someone to ask, who really paid for this place? And does that matter now? The answer depends on who you ask and what you believe history owes the present. Before Forest Lodge, before Hollygrove, there was a cottage. 1697, the earliest conveyance, legal transfer of property, mentions a small cottage with 2 acres of land annexed to it. Location, Windsor Great Park, or near it. The boundaries of the park shifted over centuries, but the land was part of the royal forest, crown land technically, used for hunting, managed by rangers. The cottage, small, maybe 2 rooms, maybe 3, timber-framed likely, thatched roof, 1 chimney, for a family or a single person, possibly a gamekeeper, possibly a tenant farmer. Records don't specify. 2 acres, enough for a kitchen garden, a few chickens, self-sufficiency, not wealth, not poverty, modest. Who owned it in 1697? Unknown. Who lived there? Unknown. Why does it matter? Because this is the origin, the seed from which Forest Lodge grew. Over the next 75 years, the property changed hands, enlarged, improved. By 1772, when John Deacon purchased it, the cottage had become, or was about to become, a house. John Deacon, groom of the bedchamber to Henry Frederick, Duke of Cumberland and Strathearn, 1767 to 1790. Groom of the bedchamber sounds servile. It wasn't. It was a court position, prestigious, close to royalty. Grooms assisted with dressing, personal needs, but also managed households, handled correspondence, wielded influence. The Duke of Cumberland was younger brother of George III, controversial. In 1771, he married a commoner, widow, previously married, without royal consent. Violation of Royal Marriages Act, caused scandal. He was socially exiled but retained his titles and income. Deacon served Cumberland through this, loyal, discreet, rewarded. The Duke likely helped Deacon acquire property in Windsor Great Park, proximity to Windsor Castle, royal favor made tangible. 1772, Deacon buys the estate, commissions plans for a new house, Holly Grove. The architects, Henry Flitcroft and Thomas Sandby. Henry Flitcroft, 1797 to 1769, already dead by 1772, but his designs weren't. Flitcroft was a prominent Georgian architect, designed country houses, churches, public buildings. His style, Palladian, classical, symmetrical, proportioned, influenced by Italian architect Andrea Palladio. Flitcroft had previously designed improvements for Windsor Great Lodge, later Cumberland Lodge, about a mile from Holly Grove. The plans for Holly Grove adapted those earlier designs. Thomas Sandby, 1721 to 1798, architect, surveyor, artist. He worked as Flitcroft's assistant. After Flitcroft's death, Sandby executed his designs. For Holly Grove, Sandby adapted Flitcroft's plan, a 3-bay central block with flanking 2-story wings. This is the house we see today, the core. Later additions don't change the fundamental layout. 1772 to 1778, construction, 6 years, not unusual for a house this size. Georgian construction was slow, hand-laid brick, timber joinery, plastered interiors, everything crafted on-site. The materials? Red brick, locally sourced likely, kilns in the area. Brick was standard for Georgian houses, cheaper than stone, durable, fire-resistant. Slate sloof, imported from Wales or Cornwall. Slate was premium material, expensive but long-lasting. Timber, oak for structural beams, pine for floors and doors, sourced from Windsor Forest itself possibly. Marble for fireplaces, imported. Marble was luxury only for principal rooms. Plaster, lime-based, for interior walls, ceilings, decorative cornices. Glass for windows, expensive, each pane hand-blown, fitted into wooden sash frames. The cost, unknown, but substantial. A house like this, 9 bays, 8 bedrooms, marble fireplaces, would have cost thousands of pounds in 1772. That's equivalent to millions today. Who paid? John Deacon. But Deacon's salary as groom of the bedchamber wasn't sufficient alone. Likely, loans or financial assistance from Cumberland or other income sources. Deacon lived at Holly Grove until at least 1990, when Cumberland died. After that, unclear. He likely continued until his death, but records are sparse. What's certain is by 1803, Holly Grove had a new owner, and this new owner's money came from a very different and very dark source. Let's pause on the architecture, because understanding Forest Lodge means understanding Georgian design philosophy. Georgian architecture, 1714 to 1830, wasn't just aesthetic, it was ideological. It represented order over chaos, reason over emotion, classical over Gothic, symmetry over irregularity. This was the Enlightenment made stone, man asserting control over nature, society organizing itself rationally. Henry Flitcroft's philosophy. Flitcroft was a Palladian architect. Palladianism, named after Andrea Palladio, 1508 to 1580, emphasized symmetry, buildings should be mirror images left to right, proportion, mathematical ratios between parts, height to width, door to window, classical elements, columns, pediments, cornices borrowed from Greek and Roman temples, functionality, rooms logically arranged for use, not just display. For Holly Grove, Flitcroft designed 3-bay central block, flanked by 2-story wings. This creates visual balance, the eye sees equal weight on both sides. Hierarchical space, central block is main house, family, wings are service or guest areas. Flexibility, wings can be extended without disrupting symmetry. Later editions proved this. Thomas Sandby's execution. Sandby was more than architect. He was a royal draftsman, official artist to the crown, landscape designer. He planned not just buildings but settings. An engineer, designed bridges, waterworks, infrastructure. For Holly Grove, Thomas Sandby's contributions adapted Flitcroft's plan to the specific site, designed the surrounding landscape, pleasure grounds, formal gardens for walking, entertainment, planned the approach, how you arrive matters, the house should be revealed gradually, building anticipation, integrated with Windsor Great Park. Holly Grove wasn't isolated, it was part of a larger designed landscape. The Virginia Water Connection. Virginia Water is an artificial lake in Windsor Great Park, created in the 1740s by Thomas Sandby's brother Paul Sandby and the Duke of Cumberland. Yes, the same one John Deacon served. The lake, 1 mile long, 167 acres, fed by streams, dammed, stocked with fish, used for boating, fishing, picnicking. A landscape feature, nature improved by art. Thomas Sandby designed a great bridge to straddle Virginia Water. This connected Holly Grove's grounds to the wider park. You could walk from the house, through pleasure grounds, across the bridge, into the forest. Seamless integration. The ha-ha. Holly Grove's grounds include a ha-ha, a sunken wall. From the house, you see unbroken landscape, lawn rolling to trees, pastoral perfection. But there's a hidden ditch and wall keeping livestock out. The ha-ha creates illusion, nature unconfined, reality carefully controlled. This is Georgian landscape philosophy. Nature should appear natural, but actually be designed. The numbers. Let's quantify Holly Grove as built, ca. 1778. 9 bays across the front facade, 3-bay central block projecting forward, 2-story wings flanking, 6 chimneys, originally, possibly more, approximately 40 to 50 rooms, including service areas, attics, 8 principal bedrooms, family and guests, multiple reception rooms, drawing room, dining room, library, servants' quarters, separate staircases, bedrooms, dining hall, kitchen and service wing, originally part of the main house, later extended. Land, 2 acres originally, by 1803, expanded significantly. Construction timeline. 1772, Deacon purchases property, commissions plans. 1772 to 1778, construction, approximately 6 years. 1778, house substantially complete. 1778 to 1803, Deacon's residence, 25 years. What did it cost? Estimates for a house like this in the 1770s, £5,000 to £10,000, roughly £1 to £2 million today. This includes land, construction, furnishings. For John Deacon, this was substantial investment, but affordable for someone with royal connections and steady income. For the next owner, Spencer Mackay, it was pocket change, because Mackay's fortune dwarfed Deacon's, and that fortune came from sugar, and sugar came from slavery. 1803, Holly Grove changes hands. The buyer, Spencer Mackay. Who was Spencer Mackay? Wealthy, very wealthy. But his wealth didn't come from Britain. It came from British Guiana, now Guyana, South America. Spencer Mackay owned sugar plantations, not small plots, 3 major estates: Lusignan, Cane Grove, and Annadale. These weren't farms, they were industrial operations, hundreds of acres, processing facilities, infrastructure, and most importantly, enslaved labor. The economics of sugar. 1803. Sugar was gold. Britain consumed sugar voraciously. Tea, coffee, desserts, preserves. Demand was insatiable. Caribbean and South American plantations supplied it. The process? Plant sugarcane, labor-intensive, clearing land, planting, tending. Harvest, brutal work, cutting cane by hand under tropical sun. Process, crushing cane to extract juice, boiling to crystallize sugar, hot, dangerous, exhausting. Ship, barrels of sugar sent to Britain, sold at massive profit. Who did this work? Enslaved Africans, captured, sold, transported across the Atlantic in horrific conditions. Those who survived were bought by plantation owners, worked to death, replaced. This wasn't abstract. This was Spencer Mackay's business model. The Legacies of British Slave Ownership Database. Spencer Mackay is listed. University College London maintains this database, documenting British slave owners, their properties, and compensation they received when slavery was abolished, 1833. Mackay's listing confirms owner of Lusignan, Cane Grove, and Annadale estates, British Guiana, now Guyana, South America, active in early 19th century, received compensation when slavery was abolished. Compensation. Let that sink in. When Britain abolished slavery in 1833, slave owners were compensated for their loss of property. Enslaved people received nothing. Owners, including estates like Mackay's, received payments. The numbers. Estimated. Exact figures for Mackay's estates are incomplete, but we can estimate based on typical sugar plantations of the era. Lusignan estates, approximately 200 to 300 enslaved people. Cane Grove estate, approximately 150 to 250 enslaved people. Annadale estate, approximately 100 to 200 enslaved people. Total, 450 to 750 enslaved people across 3 estates. Each person represented a life, a family, suffering. For Spencer Mackay, they represented labor units, assets, profit. Annual sugar production estimated, Lusignan 200 to 300 hogsheads. 1 hogshead equals 1,000 to 1,400 pounds of sugar. Cane Grove 150 to 250 hogsheads. Annadale 100 to 150 hogsheads. Total 450 to 700 hogsheads annually. That's 450,000 to 980,000 pounds of sugar. Market value, 1803, sugar sold for approximately 40 to 60 shillings per hundredweight, 112 pounds. Rough annual revenue, 10,000 to 20,000 pounds, equivalent to 1 to 2 million pounds today. Costs, labor, processing, shipping, maybe 30 to 40% of revenue. Net profit, 6,000 to 12,000 pounds annually, equivalent to 600,000 to 1.2 million pounds today. Over 10 years, 60,000 to 120,000 accumulated wealth. That's how Spencer Mackay could afford Holly Grove. Holly Grove's purchase, 1803. Mackay bought the estate from John Deacon's heirs. Deacon likely died by then. Purchase price, unknown, but based on property values, likely 15 to 25,000 pounds. For Mackay, this was less than 2 years of plantation profit. The estate Mackay acquired? The house, 9 bays, 8 bedrooms, marble fireplaces, expanded grounds, no longer 2 acres. Mackay's deeds describe expansive acreage with views over Windsor Forest and Great Park, access to Virginia water, fishing, boating rights, prestige, royal park location, proximity to Windsor Castle. Mackay lived at Holly Grove seasonally.
Sugar planters often lived in Britain, visiting plantations periodically. Overseers managed day-to-day operations. Mackay enjoyed the profits in England. At Holly Grove, Mackay lived as a gentleman, entertained, hunted in Windsor Forest, fished Virginia water, socialized with aristocracy. Meanwhile, in British Guiana, enslaved people worked, died, were replaced, their suffering invisible to Holly Grove's guests. The moral arithmetic. Every brick of Holly Grove, laid by English laborers, paid English wages, was funded by enslaved labor in South America. Every marble fireplace, paid for by people who'd never see it. Every sash window, purchased with profit extracted from bodies breaking under tropical sun. This isn't metaphor. This is direct causation. Spencer Mackay's wealth equals enslaved people's labor. Holly Grove's elegance equals sugar plantations' brutality. You can't separate them. The house exists because of slavery. And in 2025, when William and Kate move in, renovations paid privately, rent paid at market rate, they're living in a house that slavery built. Does that matter? Should it? Historians say acknowledge it. Context matters. Legacy matters. Others say it was 220 years ago. Mackay's long dead. The enslaved people are long dead. The house has changed hands. It's history, not current guilt. Both positions are defensible. Neither is comfortable. What's undeniable, the past doesn't disappear. It's built into the walls, literally. And silence about that past, common in media coverage of Forest Lodge, is a choice to prioritize comfort over truth.
Let's name them, not individuals. Their names are mostly lost, erased by the plantation system that commodified them. But let's name their experiences, their humanity, because they paid for Holly Grove. Life on a sugar plantation, British Guiana, early 1800s. The work. Enslaved people worked dawn to dusk, 6 days a week. Sunday was theoretically rest, but often used for tending personal plots, growing food to supplement inadequate rations. Tasks included field work, planting, weeding, harvesting sugarcane in tropical heat under overseers who punished slowness with whips. Factory work, crushing cane, dangerous, arms or hands caught in machinery. Boiling juice, burns from hot liquid, crystallizing sugar, heat, fumes. Maintenance, repairing buildings, tools, irrigation, endless labor. Domestic work. Some enslaved people worked in plantation houses, cooking, cleaning, serving, still enslaved, still subject to owners' whims. The conditions. Barracks, wooden huts, minimal, no privacy, families separated or crammed together. Food, inadequate, rations of flour, salted fish, insufficient calories for the labor demanded. Clothing, minimal, 1 or 2 changes, no shoes. Medical care, almost none. Plantation owners viewed enslaved people as replaceable, cheaper to buy new workers than maintaining existing ones. The mortality. Sugar plantations had highest death rates of any slave labor. Reasons? Disease, tropical illnesses, malaria, dysentery, no treatment. Malnutrition, inadequate food combined with extreme labor weakened bodies. Accidents, machinery, falls, burns. Punishment, whipping, beating, execution for disobedience. Despair, suicide rates were high. Some enslaved people chose death over continued suffering. Life expectancy for enslaved person on sugar plantation, 30 to 35 years, compared to 50 to 60 for free people in Britain. The families. Enslaved people formed families, had children, loved, despite everything. But plantation owners didn't respect families. Children could be sold away, spouses separated, families broken for profit. On Mackay's estates, Lusignan, Cane Grove, Annadale, this happened, repeatedly, for decades.
The resistance. Enslaved people resisted, not always openly. Open rebellion was brutally suppressed, but in daily ways. Slowdowns, working just fast enough to avoid punishment. Sabotage, breaking tools accidentally, damaging crops. Escape, running away. Difficult, where to go, but some tried. Culture, maintaining language, religion, music, asserting humanity in the face of dehumanization. Plantation owners like Mackay feared rebellion, employed overseers to watch, control, punish. Violence was routine. The profit. For Spencer Mackay, sitting in Holly Grove, marble fireplace warming him, wine from his cellar, servants attending, the plantations were numbers, annual reports, hogsheads of sugar, profit margins, dividends. The people producing that wealth? Invisible, across an ocean, out of mind. The compensation, 1833. Britain abolished slavery in 1833, not because plantation owners decided to, because abolitionist movement, decades of campaigning, moral arguments, economic arguments, free labor more efficient than slavery. Slave rebellions, increasing, costly to suppress. Political pressure, public opinion shifted, slowly, partially, but enough. The law. Slavery abolished in British colonies, but owners were compensated. The British government borrowed £20 million, equivalent to £2 to £3 billion today, to pay slave owners for their lost property. Enslaved people received nothing. Not compensation, not apology, not land, nothing. They were simply freed into economies that offered few opportunities. Mackay's estates received compensation. Exact amounts unclear, records fragmentary, but substantial. And that compensation, paid by British taxpayers, went to men like Mackay, who'd already profited for decades, who'd built houses like Hollygrove, who lived in comfort bought by suffering. The names we don't know. We don't know the names of most enslaved people on Lusignan, Cane Grove, Annadale. Plantation records, if they exist, aren't public. Even if they were, they'd list age, gender, work assignment, not hopes, dreams, loved ones. But they were people, hundreds of them, who loved their families, mourned their losses, hoped for freedom, endured unimaginable suffering, survived, some of them, to see abolition. And they paid for Hollygrove, every brick, every window, every fireplace. Their labor, extracted, sold, profited, bought Spencer Mackay's English mansion. The legacy. When we talk about Forest Lodge today, William and Kate's new home, Georgian elegance, royal residence, we erase them, not deliberately, but by omission, by focusing on architecture, not on how it was paid for. That erasure is violence, a different kind than the plantations, but violence nonetheless, because it denies those people their place in history, denies their suffering created this beauty. The question, should William and Kate live there? That's not for me to answer, but they should know, and the public should know. And we should ask, what does it mean to inhabit a space built by slavery? And does silence about that history perpetuate the original injustice?
1829, June 27th. The Crown purchases Holly Grove. Not directly. The Crown Estate, the property portfolio that funds the monarchy, acquires it. Price, undisclosed, but substantial. Why? The Crown wanted control of Windsor Great Park. By 1829, Windsor Great Park was royal hunting ground, royal pleasure park, royal symbol. But parcels within it, like Holly Grove, were privately owned. This created problems. 1. Access. Private owners could restrict public and royal movement through their land. 2. Development. Private owners could build, alter landscapes, disrupt the park's aesthetic. 3. Control. The Crown wanted Windsor Great Park unified under royal management. So they bought properties,
gradually. Holly Grove was one. But here's what's uncomfortable. The Crown bought a house built with slavery money. Did they know? Almost certainly. Spencer Mackay was known. His plantations were documented. His wealth's source wasn't secret. Did they care? That's the question. 1829 context. Slavery was still legal in British colonies. Abolition wouldn't come until 1833, 4 years away. So technically, buying Holly Grove from a slave owner wasn't controversial. Slavery was normal, accepted, part of the economic system. But abolition movement was growing. William Wilberforce and others had campaigned for decades. Public opinion was shifting, slowly. The horrors of slavery were becoming harder to ignore. So the Crown buying Holly Grove in 1829 was legally unproblematic, morally complicated. The purchase details. Exact terms aren't public, but typical Crown estate acquisitions involved fair market value paid, survey and valuation by Crown assessors, legal conveyance transferring ownership, integration into Crown estate portfolio. Holly Grove became residence for the Deputy Ranger of Windsor Great Park. The Deputy Ranger position. Windsor Great Park needed management. The Ranger, senior position, ceremonial and practical, oversaw the park. The Deputy Ranger handled day-to-day operations, forestry management, maintaining woodlands, wildlife, deer herds, game birds, access, controlling who could hunt, fish, ride, maintenance, roads, bridges, fences, staff, gamekeepers, groundskeepers, laborers. It was a prestigious position, well paid, came with residence, Holly Grove. Early Deputy Ranger residence. Sir William Fremantle, early occupant, military officer, administrator, connected to royal household. Colonel Francis Seymour, 5th Marquess of Hertford, resident in 1860, aristocrat, wealthy, controlled access to Virginia water. Local fishermen had to get his permission. He was strict, difficult to obtain an order for fishing, contemporary accounts say. This created resentment. Local people viewed Virginia water as public amenity, but Seymour, living at Holly Grove, treated it as private domain. Legally correct, Crown property, socially tone-deaf. The Honorable Augustus Little, later resident. Similar story. Privilege, control, distance from common people. The pattern, Holly Grove housed elite, people with status, who exercised power over the landscape and the people who wanted to use it. And the house's foundation, Spencer Mackay's slavery money, was never mentioned, erased, forgotten, or deliberately ignored. The name remains. Through the 1800s, the house was still called Holly Grove. The name referenced the original cottage's surroundings, holly trees, common in Windsor Forest. The name would change later, but for now, Holly Grove it remained, a mansion with a past nobody discussed, occupied by people who probably didn't know or didn't care where the money that built it came from. The uncomfortable question: when the Crown bought Holly Grove, did they inherit its moral debt? Arguments yes. By purchasing, they validated Mackay's wealth. By using the property, they benefited from slavery's legacy. Silence about the source constitutes complicity. Arguments no. The Crown didn't own slaves. The purchase was decades after construction. Institutional ownership dilutes personal responsibility. Both are defensible. Neither is satisfactory. What's certain, from 1829 forward, Holly Grove was royal property, and the Crown made no effort to acknowledge its history. The house served the monarchy for a century. Deputy rangers came and went. The building aged, was maintained, was modified. But Spencer Mackay's name faded. The plantations were forgotten. The enslaved people who paid for the bricks became invisible. Until now. Until historians started asking uncomfortable questions. until databases like the legacies of British slave ownership made connections explicit. And now, as William and Kate move in, the question returns. Does the Crown owe acknowledgement? An apology? Anything? Or is 200 years enough distance to declare the past irrelevant?
1829, 1937. Over a century. Holly Grove serves as Deputy Ranger's residence, a parade of occupants. Most forgotten. Some remembered for the wrong reasons. The Deputy Ranger's power. The position sounds administrative. It wasn't. The Deputy Ranger controlled 1. Hunting rights. Who could hunt deer, shoot game birds, only those with Deputy Ranger's permission. 2. Fishing rights. Virginia water was stocked with trout, pike, perch, excellent fishing, but difficult to obtain an order. You needed the Deputy Ranger's approval, and he didn't give it easily. 3. Access. Windsor Great Park had public areas and restricted areas. The Deputy Ranger decided boundaries, enforced rules, could ban troublemakers. 4. Employment. The park employed gamekeepers, groundskeepers, laborers. The Deputy Ranger hired, fired, managed. Local jobs depended on his favor. This created a feudal dynamic. The Deputy Ranger, living in elegant Holly Grove, wielded power over local people who depended on the park for livelihood or recreation. Colonel Francis Seymour, 5th Marquis of Hertford, c. 1860. Seymour is the most documented. Why? Because people complained. Contemporary accounts. Difficult to obtain an order to fish Virginia water. Seymour granted permission selectively. Friends, aristocrats, yes. Common people, no. He patrolled the lake, enforced rules strictly. Trespassers were prosecuted. This wasn't illegal. Virginia water was Crown property. Seymour was enforcing property rights. But it was unpopular. Local people viewed the lake as a communal space. They'd fished there for generations. Seymour's restrictions felt like enclosure, turning common land into private preserve. Enclosure was contentious throughout British history. From medieval times through the 1800s, common lands were privatized. Landowners benefited. Common people lost access to resources they'd relied on. Seymour, living at Holly Grove, represented that dynamic. Privilege excluding need. The numbers, Virginia water. Let's quantify the lake. Created 1746 by Duke of Cumberland. Length, approximately 1 mile. Surface area, 167 acres. Depth varies, maximum around 15 to 20 feet. Fish species, trout, pike, perch, carp. Surrounding parkland, hundreds of acres of forest, lawns. Accessibility, officially Crown property, restricted access. For comparison, Hyde Park's Serpentine, 40 acres. Virginia water is 4 times larger. Regent's Park Lake, 22 acres. Virginia water is 7.5 times larger. Virginia water was and is significant landscape feature, not just for fishing, for walking, boating, picnicking, a public amenity. Except it wasn't public, it was royal. And the Deputy Ranger, living a quarter mile away in Holly Grove, controlled it. Other Deputy Rangers. Sir William Fremantle. Less documented. Military background. Typical aristocratic appointment. The Honorable Augustus Little. Similar. Privilege. Position as a reward for service or family connection. Sir Malcolm Murray. Retired 1937. Last Deputy Ranger to live at Holly Grove full-time. By the 1930s, the position was becoming anachronistic. Britain was modernizing. Aristocratic sinecures were falling out of favor. Murray retired, and Holly Grove's purpose changed. The pattern.
For over a century, Holly Grove housed elite, people born into privilege, who controlled access to landscape and resources, who lived in a mansion built on slavery money, though by the 1900s that origin was forgotten or unknown. The house represented accumulated privilege, not earned, inherited, institutional. And as the 20th century progressed, that model became increasingly untenable. Britain fought 2 world wars. The working class gained political power. Labor movement grew. Aristocracy declined. By 1937, the deputy ranger position was obsolete. Holly Grove needed new purpose. And into that vacancy stepped Edward VIII, and a decision that would change the house's name forever. 1936. Britain has a new king, Edward VIII. He would reign for 326 days, abdicate in December 1936 to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. The constitutional crisis that resulted is well known. What's less known, during those 326 days, Edward made decisions about royal properties. One involved Holly Grove. Edward VIII and Sir John Aird. Sir John Aird, 3rd Baronet, was Edward's equerry, a personal assistant, trusted aide. Equerries managed royal schedules, accompanied royals on engagements, handled personal affairs. Aird was close to Edward, loyal, discreet. Edward wanted to reward that loyalty. Sir Eric Saville, who succeeded Sir Malcolm Murray as senior park manager, recorded that Edward told him Holly Grove should be let to Sir John Aird. Let means leased, not given. Aird would live there, pay rent, probably nominal, enjoy the house. But Aird had a problem. He hated the name Holly Grove. According to Jane Roberts, royal librarian, in her book Royal Landscape, Aird thought the name distasteful. Why? Unclear. Theories. Too rustic. Holly Grove sounds modest, rural. Aird wanted something grander. Personal association. Maybe Aird had negative memory associated with Holly or Grove. Aesthetics. He just didn't like it. Whatever the reason, Aird wanted a change, and Edward, obliging his favorite aide, agreed. The name debate, 1936 to 1937. Alternatives were considered. Ranger's Lodge, reflecting the house's history as deputy ranger's residence. Forest Lodge, emphasizing location in Windsor Forest. Ranger's Lodge was rejected, probably because the deputy ranger position was being phased out. Why name the house after an obsolete role? Forest Lodge was chosen. Simple, descriptive, neutral, and crucially, erased Holly Grove. This matters because names carry history. Holly Grove connected to the original Cottage, to John Deacon, to Spencer Mackay, to 150 years of continuity. Forest Lodge was new, clean, disconnected from the past. Was this intentional erasure of Mackay's slavery connection? Probably not. By 1936, Mackay was forgotten. The slavery origin wasn't common knowledge. The name change was likely just Aird's preference. But effect is the same as intent. Changing the name severed historical thread, made it harder to trace the house's origins. And so, Holly Grove became Forest Lodge, 1937, the name we use today. The renovations, 1937. The house was renovated for Aird by Richardson and Gill, an architectural firm. The work? Modernization, updating plumbing, electrical, heating, redecorating, new interiors, furnishings, structural adjustments, some walls moved, rooms reconfigured. The goal, make an 18th century house comfortable for 20th century living. Successful. Forest Lodge became elegant, comfortable, modern for 1937. Sir John Aird's residence. Aird lived at Forest Lodge until his death in 1973, but his death was tragic, suicide. Aird took his own life. Circumstances? Unclear. Personal, financial, health reasons? Records are private. After his death, his widow, Lady Priscilla Aird, held the lease, but by the mid-1970s, the house's future was uncertain again. Edward VIII's abdication. Edward abdicated December 1936, less than a year after arranging Forest Lodge for Aird. Edward's reign is remembered for crisis, not for estate management, but his decision about Forest Lodge endured. The name stuck, the renovations stuck, and Aird's residence, despite ending in tragedy, established precedent. Forest Lodge could be home for people connected to royalty, but not royals themselves. This would define the house for the next 80-plus years, until 2025.
1973. Sir John Aird dies by suicide. The house he'd renamed, renovated, lived in for 36 years, suddenly empty. Lady Priscilla Aird, his widow, holds the lease. But she's aging. The house is large, expensive to maintain. She stays briefly, then vacates. Forest Lodge is available, again, and speculation begins. Which royal will claim it? 1975. Princess Anne speculation. December 1975, the Daily Telegraph reports Forest Lodge is strongly tipped as potential residence for Princess Anne and her husband, Captain Mark Phillips. The logic: Anne needed a country house. She'd married in 1973. Kensington Palace was London base. She wanted rural retreat. Forest Lodge was available, Crown Estate property, within Windsor Great Park, private, secure. Suitable size, 8 bedrooms, staff accommodation, perfect for young royal couple planning family. But it didn't happen. Why? Possible reasons: Aird's widow still held lease. Priscilla Aird had legal rights. Evicting her would be tasteless. Anne preferred elsewhere. She ultimately chose Gatcombe Park in Gloucestershire, purchased 1976. Forest Lodge would have been leased, Crown Estate property, less autonomy. So Anne passed, and Forest Lodge remained empty. 1998. Sarah Ferguson speculation. January 1998. Reports surfaced that Elizabeth II was planning to gift Forest Lodge to Sarah, Duchess of York, ex-wife of Prince Andrew, divorced 1996. The speculation made sense. Sarah needed housing. Post-divorce, her living situation was unsettled. Elizabeth liked Sarah, reportedly. Despite divorce, the Queen maintained cordial relations. Forest Lodge was vacant, again. But the Daily Telegraph immediately called the reports wide of the mark. Why? Forest Lodge wasn't in the Queen's personal gift. It's Crown Estate property, managed commercially, not personally owned by the monarch. The Queen couldn't just give it away. That would require Crown Estate approval, lease terms, market rate rent. And Sarah was controversial. Her finances were messy, her public image damaged by scandals. Giving her a crown property, even on lease, would be politically awkward. So, no Sarah at Forest Lodge. April 1998, open market offer. The Crown Estate decided, lease Forest Lodge commercially through Knight Frank, a prestigious estate agency. Terms: 20-year lease. Estimated value, £3 million 1998. Open market rent. Amount undisclosed, but substantial. This was significant. For decades, Forest Lodge housed people with royal connections, deputy rangers, equerries. Now, anyone with money could lease it. Did anyone? Yes. Lord Napier and Ettrick reportedly leased it in the early 2000s, but details are sparse. He lived there, then didn't. The house cycled through tenants, none famous, all wealthy, all private. 2001, major restoration. The Crown Estate invested £1.5 million in restoration. This wasn't minor repair. This was structural work, roof, chimneys, foundations, systems, new plumbing, electrical, heating. Conservation, preserving Georgian features, cornices, fireplaces, woodwork. Modernization, making 18th century house livable for 21st century. Why invest so much? Because Forest Lodge is Grade 2 listed, Historic England designation. This means protected, can't be demolished or drastically altered without permission. Responsibility, owners, Crown Estate, must maintain appropriately. Value,
Well-maintained listed buildings retain value. After 2001 restoration, Forest Lodge was pristine, historically authentic, modernly comfortable, and expensive. Market rent for a house like this estimated £10,000 to £20,000 per month, 2001 prices, maybe more. Who could afford that? Very few people. And yet, for 20-plus years, Forest Lodge remained Crown Estate rental. Tenants came and went, none famous. The house was private, secured, invisible. Until 2025.
1973. Sir John Aird dies by suicide. The house he'd renamed, renovated, lived in for 36 years, suddenly empty. Lady Priscilla Aird, his widow, holds the lease. But she's aging. The house is large, expensive to maintain. She stays briefly, then vacates. Forest Lodge is available, again, and speculation begins. Which royal will claim it? 1975. Princess Anne speculation. December 1975, the Daily Telegraph reports Forest Lodge is strongly tipped as potential residence for Princess Anne and her husband, Captain Mark Phillips. The logic: Anne needed a country house. She'd married in 1973. Kensington Palace was London base. She wanted rural retreat. Forest Lodge was available, Crown Estate property, within Windsor Great Park, private, secure. Suitable size, 8 bedrooms, staff accommodation, perfect for young royal couple planning family. But it didn't happen. Why? Possible reasons: Aird's widow still held lease. Priscilla Aird had legal rights. Evicting her would be tasteless. Anne preferred elsewhere. She ultimately chose Gatcombe Park in Gloucestershire, purchased 1976. Forest Lodge would have been leased, Crown Estate property, less autonomy. So Anne passed, and Forest Lodge remained empty. 1998. Sarah Ferguson speculation. January 1998. Reports surfaced that Elizabeth II was planning to gift Forest Lodge to Sarah, Duchess of York, ex-wife of Prince Andrew, divorced 1996. The speculation made sense. Sarah needed housing. Post-divorce, her living situation was unsettled. Elizabeth liked Sarah, reportedly. Despite divorce, the Queen maintained cordial relations. Forest Lodge was vacant, again. But the Daily Telegraph immediately called the reports wide of the mark. Why? Forest Lodge wasn't in the Queen's personal gift. It's Crown Estate property, managed commercially, not personally owned by the monarch. The Queen couldn't just give it away. That would require Crown Estate approval, lease terms, market rate rent. And Sarah was controversial. Her finances were messy, her public image damaged by scandals. Giving her a crown property, even on lease, would be politically awkward. So, no Sarah at Forest Lodge. April 1998, open market offer. The Crown Estate decided, lease Forest Lodge commercially through Knight Frank, a prestigious estate agency. Terms: 20-year lease. Estimated value: £3 million 1998. Open market rent. Amount undisclosed, but substantial. This was significant. For decades, Forest Lodge housed people with royal connections, deputy rangers, equerries. Now, anyone with money could lease it. Did anyone? Yes. Lord Napier and Ettrick reportedly leased it in the early 2000s, but details are sparse. He lived there, then didn't. The house cycled through tenants, none famous, all wealthy, all private. 2001, major restoration. The Crown Estate invested £1.5 million in restoration. This wasn't minor repair. This was structural work, roof, chimneys, foundations, systems, new plumbing, electrical, heating. Conservation, preserving Georgian features, cornices, fireplaces, woodwork. Modernization, making 18th century house livable for 21st century. Why invest so much? Because Forest Lodge is Grade 2 listed, Historic England designation. This means protected, can't be demolished or drastically altered without permission.
Responsibility. Owners, Crown Estate, must maintain appropriately. Value. Well-maintained listed buildings retain value. After 2001 restoration, Forest Lodge was pristine, historically authentic, modernly comfortable, and expensive. Market rent for a house like this estimated £10,000 to £20,000 per month, 2001 prices, maybe more. Who could afford that? Very few people. And yet, for 20-plus years, Forest Lodge remained Crown Estate rental. Tenants came and went, none famous. The house was private, secured, invisible. Until 2025.
August 2025. Reports surface. William, Prince of Wales, and Catherine, Princess of Wales, are moving from Adelaide Cottage, where they'd lived since 2022, to Forest Lodge. The announcement, leaked to press, not officially confirmed initially, sparked immediate interest. Why Forest Lodge? Multiple factors. 1. Space. Adelaide Cottage is small, 4 bedrooms, perfect for couple with young children. But George, born 2013, Charlotte, born 2015, and Louis, born 2018, are growing. Teenagers need space, privacy. Forest Lodge offers 8 bedrooms, room to grow. 2. Privacy. Adelaide Cottage is in Windsor Park, smaller, more accessible than Great Park. Forest Lodge is deeper in Windsor Great Park, more secluded, harder for paparazzi, tourists to reach. 3. Proximity. To Windsor Castle, where William's father, King Charles III, and stepmother, Queen Camilla, often reside. Family closeness. Duty proximity. 4. Tradition. Windsor has been Wales' family base for generations. William grew up partly there. Choosing Forest Lodge continues that connection. 5. Practicality. The house is ready, restored, managed by Crown Estate. Lease terms straightforward. The lease terms. 20-year non-assignable lease, reported. Open market rent, amount undisclosed but estimated £15,000 to £25,000 per month based on property size and location. Renovation costs paid privately by William and Kate, not taxpayer funded. This matters politically. Royal finances are scrutinized. The Sussexes, Harry and Meghan, faced backlash over Frogmore Cottage renovations, £2.4 million taxpayer money, later repaid. William and Kate learned from that. They're paying privately, emphasizing, we're tenants, we pay rent like anyone else. But are they like anyone else? Arguments, yes, they're paying market rate. They're covering renovation costs. It's Crown Estate property, managed commercially, not personal royal gift. Arguments, no, they're royal. Their position gives them first access. Security is taxpayer funded, always is for royals. The lease terms, 20 years, non-assignable, are privileged. Both are true. They're simultaneously normal tenants and completely exceptional. The renovations, 2025. Planning application was submitted, approved. Changes include new doors and windows, some replacements, removal of some internal walls, opening up spaces, modernizing layout, ceiling repairs, heritage appropriate, new floors where originals damaged. The work is sensitive to historic character, Heritage England overseas, but also making it functional for a family with 3 children. Estimated cost £500,000 to £1 million plus based on scope. William and Kate paying privately, reportedly from Duchy of Cornwall income, William's income as Prince of Wales, and personal savings. The move, November 2025. Reports say the family moved in November 2025, before Christmas, settling in. What does this mean? George, Charlotte, Louis, growing up at Forest Lodge, school, likely Lambrook School nearby, friends, childhood in Georgian mansion in Royal Park. William and Kate, balancing royal duties with family life, privacy, relatively, proximity to Windsor Castle. The house, after 250-plus years, after slavery origins, after deputy rangers, after Sir John Aird's suicide, after decades of speculation,
finally housing future king. The uncomfortable silence. Media coverage of the move focused on logistics, how many bedrooms, how much rent, family, good for the children, comparison, Adelaide Cottage versus Forest Lodge, architecture, Georgian elegance. What media didn't focus on, Spencer Mackay, Lusignan, Cane Grove, Annandale, the enslaved people who paid for the bricks. Why not? 1. It's uncomfortable. Slavery is a difficult topic. Linking it to current royals who had nothing to do with it feels unfair or inflammatory, or both. 2. It's old. 220 years. Does it still matter? 3. It's common. Many Georgian properties have slavery connections. Forest Lodge isn't unique. 4. It's political. Raising slavery in the context of royals opens debates about reparations, institutional responsibility, historical justice. Easier to avoid. But avoiding doesn't erase. The history exists. The enslaved people who paid for Forest Lodge existed. Their suffering was real. And as William and Kate settle their children into bedrooms with marble fireplaces, the question persists. Should they acknowledge it? Does silence perpetuate the original injustice?